Let's bring in John Dickerson in Washington. He's chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation. So, John, what does the Mueller news mean for the Trump administration?
Well, we don't know what it means for the Trump administration. It depends on who's indicted and what happens as a result of that, whether it has any connection to the underlying reason that Robert Mueller was made the special counsel. So it's all a speculation at the moment, to the extent that it's the closer it is to the president, obviously the more trouble that causes for him.
Well, Senator Collins told you she wants several key players from Hillary Clinton's 2016 White House run to appear again before the Senate Intelligence Committee on the issue of this Steele dossier. How does this week's news about the dossier change the narrative of the Russia investigation?
Well, it is a parallel narrative. It doesn't change, obviously, what Robert Mueller is doing and any work he would have done already on the dossier, which has both information in it that was a part of the investigation before Mueller took it over, but then is itself a possible way or vehicle for Russian influence in the campaign. So Mueller will be doing his own thing. Politically, this certainly helps the president make his case, or at least before this indictment news came forward, about what the Clinton team was up to. So but really they're two separate things, and so particularly with respect to the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Collins was saying that the lawyer who we know was involved with this creation of the dossier, or at least spending money on it, was at the table with John Podesta, the chairman of the Clinton campaign, when he said he knew nothing about how it was funded. So that lawyer will now, according to Senator Collins, should come back and testify himself, as opposed to sitting there just as somebody there going along with John Podesta.
Well, for Republican tax reform efforts, John, what does news of an indictment mean, politically speaking?
Well, it depends who the indictment is aimed at, and if it's a minor character on the fringe of this story, it won't mean very much. In fact, you could imagine, and now we're really getting into the ether here of speculation, but if it's a sidelined figure that's not related to the president, it's possible to imagine that the president would take some heart from that and say that it proves this is a witch hunt, and that might give him some sort of, I don't know, power to talk about tax cuts and not distract him. On the other hand, if it's somebody very close to the Trump campaign, then it would require all kinds of responses, both from the president and his team. That would create more volatility in the news cycle. And to the extent that there's more volatility and less focus on tax cuts, it's awfully hard to do something as big as tax cuts without everybody's focus.
Let's talk policy here. What are the key sticking points within the Republican Party on tax reform right now, John?
Well, they're all quite fuzzy. There's a framework about tax cuts that's really more a kind of guiding document that even itself has gotten eaten away at a little bit. There was talk of deducting state and local taxes and removing that deduction. You can now deduct them on your federal income tax, and they would remove that deduction as a way to pay for the larger reductions in taxes, both for corporations and some tax breaks that would be given aimed at the middle class, but also some, like removing the cap on the estate tax that would go to the wealthiest filers. So if that's no longer part of the plan, then they got to find the money somewhere. There's also been some talk about limiting the amount people can donate to their 401ks. In the House, they've talked about capping that as a way of, again, raising some revenue to pay for the other parts of the tax cut. The president this week said, no, you're not going to touch that. So those are some of the sticking points. There are lots more, though, as people decide where the rates hit have not been determined. The size of the child tax credit increase that's a part of this plan has not been determined. And so basically all of the important details, the details for which lobbyists are paid lots of money, those have not been worked out. And as they are worked out, that's where all of the complexity comes into play.
A lot of Americans very interested in tax reform right now. John Dickerson, thanks so much.
Thanks, Elaine.